This is a Fatal 4 podcast.
Eyes forward, gamers, and prepare to shuffle those feet from side to side. It's time for Squared Circle Strafe, the premier video game podcast of the Fatal 4 podcasting network. I am your host, Pro Wrestling Noah, aka Noah Stewart, and it's time to talk about video games. Hello and welcome everybody to the show. Hope you're having a good day. Hope you had a great weekend. I had a pretty good weekend over here. For some stuff happening, some hanging out was had a friend from out of town come in, and we got some banh mi, we got some Korean corn dogs, some milk teas. It was a good week of friends and food and whatnot. I actually just had before recording this podcast, I had a honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich, had a nap. Might I recommend if you're, depending on how your day is going, a honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich and a nap, it puts you in a pretty good mood. Also, I hope I'm not making you too hungry at the very beginning of this podcast, but let me tell you what I'm hungry for. It's some video game news. We've got a lot to go over here, folks. And we're going to start off some of this news with something that is very exciting to me. Tango Gameworks lives! That's right, everybody. This is coming from Video Games Chronicle, who has reported that Hi-Fi Rush studio Tango Gameworks has been acquired by Krafton and will remain open. This is huge news, everybody. So, if you don't know the whole story, let me fill you in. So, Tango Gameworks was part of a collection of studios that were closed a couple months ago by Microsoft, who just due to a economic decision decided to close down a bunch of studios, cut some of the stuff out of their catalog. One of those studios, well, there was Arcane Austin, Mighty Doom. Alpha Dog, who developed Mighty Doom, and one of the studios being Tango Gameworks, who made a game last year called Hi-Fi Rush, a rhythm-based character action game, which I loved. That was one of my absolute favorite games from last year, and was devastated to learn a couple months ago that their studio had been closed down. But it looks like the studio, along with the rights to Hi-Fi Rush, have been acquired by, what does it say here? South Korean publisher Krafton, who also owns the studios that make PUBG, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and Striking Distance, who makes the Callisto Protocol, which is, PUBG is very successful. Callisto Protocol has its fans. I have not personally played it. I've seen a decent amount of it and have heard people talk about it who have played it, and it seems fine. But I'm so excited that apparently Tango Gameworks, with its whole staff, reportings are coming out saying that pretty much everyone who was working at Tango Gameworks has either been retained by them or was offered their jobs back, and it sounds like they're just getting to make more Hi-Fi Rush, which is exciting to me because I love Hi-Fi Rush. And it also looks like with this acquisition, the rights to Tango Gameworks' previous games, like the Evil Within franchise and Ghostwire Tokyo, are not coming along with them. I think those rights are staying with Microsoft, which is unfortunate if you are into those games, but also it seems like the hype around Hi-Fi Rush, especially after release, was a lot. People were really buzzing about that game. So I could only assume that they were just going to make more of that and not necessarily revisit Evil Within for a while. Also, I think Tango Gameworks loved Evil Within, but I don't think I think it had a very small audience of people that really liked Evil Within. So I think they maybe had even at this point had given up on Evil Within being like a viable franchise that they would return to. So maybe we're not losing as much as, we think we're losing, but I don't know. I'm just very excited for more Hi-Fi Rush. That game's so pretty. That game is so original and so cool. So glad to see more of that coming. This next piece of news, also coming from Video Games Chronicle, is saying that developers are reportedly being told not to expect the successor to the Switch to launch before April 2025. This bit of news is interesting, given that the Switch, the original Switch, came out in March of 2017. And I think that was a really smart time for them to come out. Traditionally, I feel like consoles historically have released around the holiday times, like maybe like in November. November is usually the target they want to hit, or maybe even the summer, because kids are off from school, so they have some time to put into a new console, the new hottest gadget, or Christmas time, the holidays, because that's when their parents can buy them the new fancy thing, and that's when a lot of kids tend to get their big device for the year. Them not launching before April 2025, I can see maybe they wait till summer, and this is interesting given that I feel like Nintendo probably has this like in the hopper. Like I feel like this isn't a delay necessarily because they are still working on getting all the finishing touches done on the Switch 2. Nintendo is a unique publisher, or they're just like a unique company within video games, because I feel like a lot of developers, or just like people who make video games, will tell you that a lot of projects that they work on come in just like barely under the wire. Like they are looking down those deadlines and they're terrified of them. They're getting things wrapped up right before it's supposed to hit the shelf, in these days, like right before midnight when the game is supposed to release on digital platforms. And that's why you see like the day one patches, is because they're literally just trying to get all the polish done on the game right before it comes out. But Nintendo is unique in that they tend to have stuff done and then are just like able to sit on stuff. I think because a lot of their big games do tend to hit very well commercially. I mean, just look at 2020, right? The year that Animal Crossing New Horizons came out, which I think was really the only game that they really like, only big game that they came out with that year. And they were able to coast on Animal Crossing New Horizons for, I think, like 2 full calendar years and just rake in money because it was selling so much. And I honestly think that the Switch 2 could have come out of maybe 2 years ago. I'm not saying that I think that's how long they've had it done. I'm saying that they could have had a device ready to go maybe even 2 years ago, because the Switch, even when it came out, was kind of behind its competition technology-wise, which isn't new for Nintendo. That tends to be how they operate. But it's especially now is really, really showing its age, especially with like third or first-party games that are coming to the system and just running poorly. Like Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a very good game, but that has a tendency to chug. And even Breath of the Wild, the first game to come out to the Switch, it even chugged at some portions of that game. And there's also been times, like I'm pretty sure the Metroid remaster, which I think was always rumored to be like the Metroid Prime collection that was on the Wii a long time ago, had been rumored to be releasing at some point. And I think it was actually that Metroid Prime remaster. And that had apparently been done for like a long time, and they were just sitting on it to release at a strategic time in between big releases. So I feel like something like that is happening with the Switch 2, where it's probably been done for a while, and they're just waiting until the sales on the Switch dip below a certain threshold, and then they hit the launch Switch 2 button. That's all we really know about what's going on. No idea when it's like actually going to release, but it looks like we do know that it will not be coming before April 2025. Up next, we got some entertainment news, movies and whatnot coming to you from the people at Deadline. They are reporting that Prime Video, Amazon, orders an animated video game anthology series called Secret Level from the people that brought you Love, Death, and Robots. Love, Death, and Robots, a animated anthology series from Netflix, is pretty good. I've seen, I want to say 2 seasons of it. I think they put out a 3rd season of that. I don't think I saw all of that, but Love, Death, and Robots, pretty cool. It's like a sci-fi, think something like Black Mirror, but where Black Mirror is trying very hard to be very grimdark and the Twilight Zone, but in a modern setting. Love, Death, and Robots kind of gets to be anything. Like it can be, more realistic settings, very modern, or it can be like very fantastical, almost fantasy settings, just with, a sprinkling of sci-fi thrown in. And it's all different creators contributing to anthologies. So now it's looking like they are doing a series for Prime Video called Secret Level, which will utilize IP such as Amazon's New World, which New World I don't think I have heard uttered since it came out. I want to say a couple years ago was Amazon's attempt at an MMO. So bold of them to, I guess they own the IP, so why not use it? But I can't imagine people going like, oh, this, I saw a little animated short based on this thing. I might as well go try it out. I don't know how many people are going to do that. But they also have rights to Spelunky and some PlayStation titles they're going to use for this thing. So I can't imagine, because this is so beholden to these IPs, that they will be able to get as, crazy and wild as some of the stuff in Love, Death, and Robots gets. But, it's something I'll check out, something I'll see. I like an animated anthology. Animatrix is one of my favorite, pieces of art. So I'm sure there will be stuff to be seen from that. Also from Deadline, speaking of Amazon, Amazon MGM sets Nicolas Cage to play. I'm sorry. This headline is driving me crazy. Amazon MGM sets Nicolas Cage to play John Madden in David O. Russell's directed movie titled Madden, which I saw this headline and really had to wrap my head around it. I will give you the opportunity to do so as well. But what is happening here? So they're saying that there's this movie that is titled Madden is going to be a biopic starring Nicolas Cage as John Madden about his career, but also about the creation of the Madden video game franchise through Electronic Arts. Like, this is a lot. And it's these kinds of, creation of a product movies, I feel like have been really popular lately. Like you had Air, which was like the Air Jordan movie. There was like that Fiery Cheetos movie that came out recently. There was the Tetris movie, Blackberry, which I've heard is very good, but I have not seen. Jerry Seinfeld's Frosted, but we don't have to talk about that. So it seems like they're kind of getting on this trend. And I don't know, just the sentence, Nicolas Cage to play John Madden, is still crazy to me. I mean, I believe he can do it. It's Nicolas Cage. I saw Long Legs. That guy can do anything. He can transform into a unrecognizable person from himself. Which, like, I don't know. I'm seeing the side by side picture of him and John Madden. I can see how you can get there. Let's say they have maybe a similar, like, jaw situation. I don't know. It's weird. It's nutty. But I'm gonna go see it. That much is certain. So keep your eyes out for Amazon MGM's Madden, starring Nicolas Cage. All right, so I know this is a video game podcast, but I am affiliated with a podcasting network that is known for mostly doing professional wrestling news and talking about professional wrestling. So let me give you some the rare intersection of professional wrestling and video games. I don't know if it's that rare, but this is one of those times when video games and professional wrestling intersect, and it came from Cody Rhodes' his interview series, What Do You Want to Talk About?, where he interviewed Randy Orton, where Randy Orton apparently says that he has put 600 hours into Elden Ring, which is pretty crazy. I don't know. I've never really clocked Randy Orton as being a big gamer. Cody Rhodes is always talking about how he's a big gamer. We all know how much he loves Ocarina of Time and how he got cooked in his interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin when Cody told him that Ocarina of Time was the best Zelda. And Austin was like, nah, dude, Breath of the Wild. What a nerd saying it's Ocarina of Time, which is an all-timer wrestling gamer moment. But yeah, apparently this was like while Randy was out for a long time due to neck surgery, that he put in like 600 hours in the Elden Ring, man. That's crazy. To which Cody Rhodes replies that he has not played Elden Ring. He wishes that he has, and Randy Orton tells him, like, oh man, I wish you were Tarnished. He knows the lore. It's great. Amazing. I'm putting out revealing myself to be a fake gamer boy. I have not put any time. I'm like Cody Rhodes, have not put any time into Elden Ring, which I might make some listeners mad, but it's a very big video game, and it's the FromSoft thing. It's scary and intimidating. But it is something that I look at in my Amazon cart occasionally and go, I should probably get Elden Ring, especially with people talking about the DLC, which Randy Orton mentioned in this interview. He's like, hey, the DLC came out, putting a lot of hours into that too. So I don't know. That's just cool. Randy Orton telling Cody Rhodes he wishes that he was a Tarnished. Sentences said aloud by professional wrestlers in 2024. I love it. All right. We got a block of video game release dates confirmed here. First off is coming from Video Games Chronicle. We are told that the Until Dawn remaster, which I believe they're saying it's a remaster, they're saying it's rebuilt and enhanced for PlayStation 5 and PC, will be coming out October 4th, which is a good time for that. For those of you who don't know, Until Dawn is a narrative, like choice-driven game. Think something like a Telltale developed-ish game. This coming from developers Supermassive. The port will be handled by Ballistic Moon. But yeah, it's like you're watching an animated horror movie and you get to make choices and do quick time events, and hopefully everyone survives. Chances are not everyone is going to, being stalked by a slasher and whatnot. This is Sony has been doing this a lot lately, where they are remastering or sometimes entirely remaking games that have come out recently and you would not necessarily think are in need of that kind of treatment. Specifically thinking about The Last of Us Part 1 that came out, I believe, last year. That, like, yes, it's like at this point a 10-year-old game, but it doesn't really feel like it because it was already, like, The Last of Us 1 was already remastered when the PS4 launched. That was actually the way I played it for the first time. But and then also the remastering of Last of Us Part 2 that came out last year. Oh, sorry, yeah, 2023 was when Part 1 came out, I believe. But like The Last of Us Part 2 was what? That came out in 2020? And getting a remaster in 2024 is a little silly, but I'm what I'm saying is, with like this trend of Sony doing this kind of treatment for these games, I think has a lot to do with how they are approaching their strategy to adapting these games to movies and television shows. Because if you remember correctly, The Last of Us Part 1 came out like almost like day and date with when the Last of Us TV show premiered for HBO. And I feel like what they're trying to do is they are putting out these very critically acclaimed. The Last of Us was very popular and very, got good scores with the people who do reviews. And they want to put these games out around the time that these things are being adapted so that new interest in them is generated. But they don't want to be like, oh, you really like that? Well, you can go play the source material. It came out 4 years ago. Like, that's not really an exciting prospect, right? Or like people are looking at the store page and going like, oh, where's this game? Now, if they remaster or, as they're saying here, rebuild and enhance these games, they now have a reason to put it on the front of their store page. It's new, it's glossy, it's a new like $60 to $70 release that people who are maybe not necessarily as engaged with video games can see and go, oh hey, it's that thing that I watched and liked. I'll buy this one. So I'm not saying that I am in love with the practice. I'm just saying that it makes sense. So that's what they got going on for Until Dawn, coming out October 4th. We also got a release date for The Plucky Squire, which is an indie game coming from Devolver Digital. Also, I believe they are partnered, being partially funded by Xbox. It was during like all their... Every time I see The Plucky Squire in showcases, it's always during an Xbox stream. And this one is coming out September 17th, which is very soon, and I'm very excited. The Plucky Squire is a game where it presents itself as a very cute 2D animated, like little sword and sorcery adventure game, kind of like a little side-scrolling action game, and it takes place in a storybook, and the camera's kind of hovering over the table, looking down on the storybook as you control your character in the book. But then the character can come out of the book and have a little fantasy adventure on the table that the book is sitting on, like on the desk next to the window. It's very cool looking kind of blending of, like 2D and 3D animations. And I don't know, it's one that I've had my eye on for a while. I think that this has been hovering around video game announcement showcases for a couple years. And every time I see it, I'm like, please release date. And then they finally announced one very close to coming out soon. So Plucky Squire, be on the lookout for it September 17th. We also got a release date for, this is a big one, Dragon Age The Veilguard. This is coming from Eurogamer.net. They are saying that it is coming out the very spooky date of October 31st, which is a very interesting time to release this. I don't know. Maybe it's more financially strategic for them than it is, thematically. I don't know. Dragon Age can be spooky, right? Got the goopy, shadowy guys that they fight, right? I don't know. I've never played a Dragon Age, so I can't really speak to what is up with the Dragon Age. I'll also say that this trailer that they announced to this release date in revealed that the return of apparently beloved character Morgan is coming back. This article says fan favorite returning character. So excited for all the Dragon Age heads out there. Congratulations. Here you go. I don't know. Is this a good play? As someone who hasn't played Dragon Age, and I guess we won't know until it comes out, is this a good one to jump into? I don't know. But maybe? It seems, I don't know. It's got returning characters, so maybe that doesn't have as much juice for me. But judging by the marketing, it seems like a little different than previous ones. Maybe a good, I'm sure that they'll make it to where it'll be decent for new people who have not interacted with previous titles. So, October 31st, everybody. Veilguard's coming. Look out for it. All right. Now we have a block of game announcements here. First up is... All right, we got some game announcements here next up. The first one being, it looks like this is coming from Eurogamer, that beloved indie developer WayForward, people that bring you Shantae, are making a couple games based on beloved horror franchises. We got Halloween and Ash versus the Evil Dead coming soon. Two very similarly, it looks like they're, side-scrolling action platformers, that kind of thing. Combat looking kind of similar to something like Shovel Knight, I want to say. Just judging by the trailer, it looks like a lot of, slashing at enemies. If you're playing the Halloween one, as Michael Myers slashing at ghoulies and what looks to be like insane asylum criminals and stuff in this trailer. But also having one of the things I tend to associate with Shovel Knight is the kind of DuckTales-esque Scrooge McQuack pogo attacking, where you kind of like slash down and bounce off enemies' heads that way. So it looks like it's going to play kind of like that. WayForward, I really like WayForward games. I always like giving WayForward games a try. They're not always, 10-star, 5-star experiences, depending on what scale I'm talking about. Sometimes, they can be what was that? Blood Rain Betrayal. They made a 2D action platformer based on Blood Rain that it wasn't the best game, but it was fun. So, that's the kind of the quality I'm expecting from this. Not an amazing experience, but hey, you don't have to twist my arm to play a side-scrolling action platformer based on John Carpenter's Halloween. So I will be there. Don't you worry. I will talk about it on this podcast probably. But those will be hitting, or at least it looks like they're releasing at the same time. Yeah, Retro Realms, Halloween, and Ash versus the Living Dead are both set to launch for PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and the Switch on November 18th. So be on the lookout for those. More games based on movies being announced. King Kong. You heard of him? Big Gorilla. Also Godzilla. We got some, not one, but a handful of games coming from this IP. I think from a couple different places, which I think hopefully will be good for their image in video games. Because if y'all remember, I believe there was the Skull Island game that came out, I believe, last year. Kind of one of the worst games that come out in a while. Like a game coming from a big IP that releases and is just kind of broken. It looked like a really bad PS3 game, and all there was one texture on the ground repeated over and over again, and a lot of environment pop up, and just the game not functioning right or good. So I don't know. We'll see. Looks like they have like a phone game coming, which I'm not personally going to be too excited or invested in that. They're really touting the Monsterverse for this thing. Something they're saying is going to be a indie action adventure game. Out of the dark, a new Titan arises. They're all, buzzwords coming from this thing. So I don't know. We'll see. Also, something else saying 2.D action adventure for PC and consoles. Yeah, not a ton of details yet, but these games are coming. Look out for them. If you like the big monsters punching each other, there'll be some stuff. And this is a moving of release date that I'm upset, but also like it'll be fine. Just give them time to cook. So I Am Your Beast, which I talked about on last week's episode, was saying that it was supposed to come out this past Thursday. I'm very excited. I played the demo in the Steam Next Fest. The game looks, I played it, at least the demo at least, and it is very good. I played the heck out of that demo. It was supposed to come out this past Thursday, and it did not because the release date got pushed to September 10th, which is around the corner. It's like less than a month. Give Strange Scaffold all the time that they need to, put the finishing touches on it. But man, I can't wait to play that game. And now I'm getting nervous because it's coming out like I think 4 days after Astrobot for the PS4 or for the PS5 comes out, which I am also very excited to play. And I'm really hoping that Astrobot does not distract everyone from the very cool I Am Your Beast. So September 10th, around the corner. And then this one is kind of an anti-announcement for a video game. This one coming from Jeff Keighley, talking about the Gamescom Live event happening on Tuesday. Is just getting out there, just getting expectations put in place. Hey, everybody, Silk Song's not going to be on this thing. This video game, showcase, because they have said that there will be new games announced at this thing. But Jeff Keighley just wants to let you know that Silk Song not going to be there. I don't think that will stop the Twitch chat from spamming Silk Song like they always do for any showcase from any publisher or event, because that always happens. But he just wants to let you know it's not going to be there, and that Team Cherry is still cooking, according to him in this tweet. So sorry, Silkheads. At this point, this game has been hyped up for so long that I don't think it will ever be announced for like its release date. I don't think they're ever going to tell you when it's actually gonna be coming, like in the future. I think it's just got to be a shadow drop at this point, right? Because I don't. And also, like, it has been hyped up for so long, this game, that I am very scared that everyone is just going to turn on it the second it releases. Like, oh, this isn't as good as, I had always dreamed it was for years. So, I don't know. Big hopes for Silk Song. But we'll just see how people react to it, I guess. But that has been all the news for this week. Why don't we take a break, and when we come back, I'll tell you about some of the video games I've been playing this week. All right, let's talk about some more video games. I played some stuff this week. I play not a ton of new stuff, I will admit. There is one new recently released game that I played this week, and that's Thank Goodness You're Here, coming from Coal Supper, which is so video games, when they try to be funny, are not always the most successful. I feel like there are a lot, like, if people remember Matt Hazard for the PS3, they trying to be a very, send up of kind of like the boomer shooter esque, like Doom guy kind of character, and just a lot of that comedy I remember falling flat because it was very much a parody game. But Thank Goodness You're Here is one of the rare times that a game intending to be comedic actually like pretty like sticks the landing really well. Like this is a very funny game. It's Thank Goodness You're Here. It's very British, and it is a like when the game boots up, it asks you a question in heavy British slang that I was not able to decipher, and it gives you a like right on, like dead right or no to reply to it, and I said no because I didn't even know what it was talking about. And so the game is, think of it as an adventure game, kind of like a Secret of Monkey Island or a anything from the LucasArts brand of adventure game, Full Throttle, Day of the Tentacle, something like that. But instead of clicking around, moving around the environment, you are just directly moving your character around in this like very cartoonish, rural British small town. And you play as this little yellow lemon-headed guy whose size changes depending on whatever is called for in a certain scene. Like he will be standing next to people in one scene, and then he will go through a door and be way smaller than them, like just immediately. But it is very British. Like when it asks you that question at the very beginning, because the voice acting in it and all the performances have very heavy British slang in it. But if you say that you aren't familiar with it in that way, it will have subtitles kind of translating a lot of that slang to you. But think something like, if you like Monty Python, which I know is like, the most obvious comparison to make for, American talking about British comedy. But like if you like Monty Python and the a lot of the comedy there, then you will probably get a chuckle out of Thank Goodness You're Here. And I think a lot of it is very successful, just like in comedic timing and some of the absurd situations you find yourself in, like people's arms growing to weird lengths. There's a lot of sexual innuendo, people shoving sausages through fences, someone appearing to do something very obscene with a bag of mulch. A couple just kind of like looks through a window and giggles at them. I don't know, it's a gag a minute, and it is delightful. And it's also only about 3 hours long. Like I think I clocked 2.5 into the game, and I think I may have even left it paused for a few minutes to go, do some chores around the house before going back to it. So not a super long experience. I think it's like $16 on Steam. But it is one of the most unique and entertaining video games I've played this year. So Thank Goodness You're Here. Go if you. I think it's only on PC, I want to say, but it's very good. Go check it out. And then that's kind of the only new game I played this week. But I had been playing some other stuff because I recently I caved into the TikTok shop. If you've been on TikTok enough, you've been seeing ads and you play video games. You may have been seeing ads for the Ambernic devices, these little emulation handheld machines. And I decided to get one of them because one of the more recent models, the RG35XX SP, is an emulation machine that is shaped like a Game Boy Advance SP. which that is a very important time to my nostalgia in video games. The SP came out when I was like 11, something like that. So been playing some like, GBA games on that thing. I played WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games, which the only WarioWare game I had played before this was WarioWare Touched for the DS, which I love WarioWare. For people who don't know, it's a collection of very quick, very short mini games. We're talking like 3 to 5 second mini games that you see what the game is asking of you. You do it. Usually it's like one button press or a couple, movements of a D-pad, and then the game's over. You either win or you lose. You move on to the next thing. You usually play like 10 to 20 of these games in a row and see how many you can complete before you run out of chances to complete them. And it's a great game. It's got so much humor, and it's so charming. All of it. It's just so quirky. And it also makes me think that I really need to play Rhythm Heaven, because I think it's made by the same people, and I love rhythm games. So I want to say the Game Boy Advance one was Japan only, but I'm sure I could maybe figure out a way to do that. Also, if you're wondering, the Embernic devices, you can load up your own ROMs that you've officially gotten from your own collection, and by no other means involving the internet. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But the Embernic actually does come preloaded with a bunch of stuff. Right now, I think they are a little scared of some of the recent events of Nintendo coming after sites that host ROMs and either taking them to court or threatening them to do so and shutting them down. So a lot of the Embernic devices don't come preloaded with any titles that, let's say, have the word Mario in them. I was actually surprised that the Wario games are on there, but yeah, I think they're a little skittish of having some of those stuff on there. But another game that they did have on there that I've been putting WarioWare is not that long of an experience. Like, you can get through all of it in about 2 hours. But another game I've been putting a lot of time into, because it's basically a JRPG, is Mega Man Battle Network, which is a game I played a ton of growing up, and I don't think I ever actually finished. Like, I think I always got maybe like 3/4 of the way through the game, and then just decided to like, oh, this is too hard, and just like restarted because I just wanted to keep playing it. But Mega Man Battle Network is it's an RPG, because you have your character, you have stats like attack and health, blah blah blah. But it's kind of it kind of started its own genre by you have a deck, what's essentially a deck of cards, but they're chips that you can select from, and it's a real-time action battle system where you're on a grid that you are moving. It's like a 8x8 grid, or no, I'm sorry, 4x4 grid, alongside another 4x4 grid with your opponent that you're kind of moving around, dodging attacks on, all in real time. You have your buster that you hit B to just like, put out a couple shots with your buster, do some light damage, and then you do the big damage with these chips that you like can shoot a big cannon or throw a bomb and like, do some spread out damage across the whole thing, because you're fighting multiple enemies at one time generally. And the framing around it feels very Saturday morning cartoon, because you are playing this character named Lan, who is a boy that lives in a Japanese town. He goes to school, and you have your net navi, which is like the avatar that they say you jack in to, which is a very funny thing to say. You jack in to devices that are connected to the internet, and you use Mega Man, who is your net navi, to navigate the online spaces, and you use Mega Man for in these combat situations. So you have like the scenarios are like, oh no, the oven is on fire and is like causing fire to spread through the house. So you have to jack into the oven to find the fireman virus that has infected your oven to stop the fire from spreading. And like online are these big sprawling dungeons, which I think is also, and it's kind of happening now. I think they get better in later games, but the dungeons you tend to get pretty lost in them pretty easily because a lot of it looks the same. And they're all very twisty and turny, a lot of dead ends. So I don't know. I haven't played any of the later games. I'm actually thinking I'm going to after this because I'm already about halfway through it. I've put about like 4 hours into it. I'm on Iceman right now. I just entered the Iceman dungeon. But yeah, Mega Man Battle Network. It's also a series that has a lot of entries in it. Like I want to say they got up to 6 by the time they got to the DS. Which, Capcom tends to treat Mega Man kind of like that, where they tend to find something that works and milk it for as much as they can. Like, both the main series, like the main series is up to 11, and the X series, I think, got up to 8 or something. So the Mega Man franchise, like as a whole, has a ton of games in it. And they tend to just like make the same game, but with some new stuff every time. But I really like Mega Man Battle Network, so maybe that's not so bad. Just getting new Mega Man Battle Network, but with some extra stuff. They haven't made a new one in a long time. I think, like I said, the DS was the last time they made a Mega Man a Mega Man Battle Network game. But they did put out that collection recently on Switch and PC. I think it's on some of the consoles too. That I think collected the first 3, maybe 4 Mega Man Battle Network games. So there's a way to play that if you don't have, access to, or the want to mess around with emulators or the Ambernic. But yeah, I'm probably going to be playing more of that. I think. And then I don't know. Let me look at this calendar real quick to see what is coming up this next week. It looks like Black Myth Wukong is coming out this next week. As well as there's like some indie games like Mika and the Witch's Mountain, which looks like a cute little, fly around as a witch and deliver packages. Kind of like, it looks like Kiki's Delivery Service, but a video game, which is nice. And then Tactical Breach Wizards, which looks like an XCOM like, but you play as like a wizard with an assault rifle. I played a demo of that during Steam Next Fest, so that's stuff that I don't necessarily know if I'm going to, maybe it's like a walk don't run situation instead of I'm going to check those out and I'll tell you about them next week. We'll see. They're on my wish list. I'll get to them eventually, but that's just some stuff that's coming out next week. But yeah, that's what I've been playing this past week. Why don't we take one more break, and when we come back, we'll have a little segment for you. All right, it's time for the Strafe Shuffle. So since it's very much in my nostalgia zone right now because of Game Boy Advance games I've been getting back to lately, I thought I'd get nostalgic here too. Some of the people in the Discord were wondering what some of my favorite games were. Just so I guess to give some context as to what kind of games I enjoy, what kind of games I've historically, think are some of the best ones. So thought I'd just do a little bit of that here. Maybe this will be like a recurring segment where, if it's kind of I can't quite think of a third segment, or it's kind of slow, news week or something, I can just come back to this every once in a while, tell you about some of my favorite games. So first off, I will say, when this question comes up, like, hey Noah, what is your favorite game of all time? The game that I go to most of the time when I am asked that question is Eco for the PlayStation 2. Eco is just it. It was one of the first games that really captured my imagination in a way, really made me feel like the game world just felt so big and just a ton of possibilities, not necessarily in mechanics, because it is a pretty it is pretty narrow in what you can do mechanically in the game, but just the world building and the environments in that game just felt so big, and it was just telling so much of a story through its world that really had a huge impact on me and my tastes in games. And I like that whole developers suite of titles, the Team Eco, with Fumito Ueda as their lead director. Your Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian. I could say that those are in my personal favorites of all time, all three of those. And I think most people would say Shadow of the Colossus is their favorite out of all those. The endless boss rush that, just oops all bosses that game is. But Eco has combat, but is much more of a puzzle, environmental puzzle game. And the thing that really is sold on that game is the AI companion in it, which again, especially at that time when the game came out in, I want to say 2001, 2002, AI companions were seen as a detriment. Escort missions and stuff was, people would spit that name out of their mouth like it was a bad taste. But that's really what most of the game is one long escort mission where you're leading around the Princess Yorda throughout all these environments and keeping her safe from enemies. But the cool thing about Yorda is that her AI is really smart. You can call her and she'll come to you and she'll navigate spaces in intelligent ways. And when you leave her alone for a while to go do a puzzle element that she can't get to, then she just kind of wanders the environment. Maybe she'll go into a field and play with the butterflies or something. It's really neat seeing this independent character act on her own, and then you grab her by the hand and lead her through environments. It's really neat. And that whole philosophy of the AI companion has led through all of Team Eco's other games, Aggro the Horse and Shadow of the Colossus is very smart. And then of course, Trico. Yes, Trico from The Last Guardian, the big bird dog, is very smart, almost to a detriment. Parts of The Last Guardian can be pretty frustrating because they intentionally programmed Trico to act like a dog in the ways that when you give it a command, it doesn't always listen to you the first time. So when you're doing puzzles, it you think you have the solution, and then Trico just won't react to you giving it a command. So you're like, oh, that must not be the solution. And then you'll circle back to that a third time, maybe okay, this has to be the solution, right? There's no other choices. And then Trico just does it. And it's okay, he just wasn't listening to me for the first time. But yeah, Eco itself, PlayStation 2, just the textures, the art direction, just everything about it. I that is a game that I am always happy to return to. And the music that it plays for the save, that there's a little couch you sit on to save your game. The music it plays for the save screen is it's a warm blanket of nostalgia that I can wrap myself up in whenever I look it up on YouTube. It's so good. Another game that actually a franchise that I would say is very, very close to being like my favorite of all time is the Tony Hawk Pro Skater franchise. And I would say out of all of them, Tony Hawk 3 is probably the best. That was the first one for PlayStation 2, and that's where they introduced reverts, where you can come off of a half pipe and continue your combo. But I would say my favorite, the one I think of whenever I think of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 for the PlayStation 1. And obviously, you know, it was the first one I had. So that, I guess kind of by default, that would, you know, make it my favorite, perhaps. That's the one that I have the most nostalgic pull to. But that's the one that I know the soundtrack the best. Actually, a lot of my taste in music came from the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 soundtrack. It got me really into skate culture. I've never been able to actually skateboard very well. I've been able to do an ollie maybe 30% of my attempts that I would try on a skateboard when I was younger. But Tony Hawk Pro Skater, the video game, just got me. Like, I would watch skater videos. I would, you know, get like beanies and wristbands and skate shoes. Like, I was just really into it. And I have Tony Hawk Pro Skater to thank for that. But yeah, that's also, Tony Hawk Pro Skater is one game that I would say that I'm really good at, quote unquote good. I'm not, you know, like a pro, no pun intended. I'm not, you know, some kind of like speedrunner caliber skill level at it. But most of the time, and I pick up a controller and play against someone else, I'm pretty confident that I can perform well. Like, especially, you know, just like with my immediate friend group, I can pretty confidently say I can smoke most everyone that I know at you know, a score competition of sorts in Tony Hawk Pro Skater. But that is, again, that when the remaster of, or no, I'm sorry, the remake of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 came out for PlayStation 4. I had that on PlayStation 4. That I played that to death. I played through the entire campaign through both with multiple characters because that remake was so good. It was so perfect. It felt exactly like it needed to, which is saying a lot because a lot of the like that first HD remake that they did on the PlayStation 3 was not very good. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 sucks. And it was just insane that they were able to pull it off with remake 1 and 2. And then Activision took that developer who was, I believe in the process of making remake 3 and 4 and just said, nah, you're a support team for Diablo now, which cool. I mean, Diablo's fine, but it ain't Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Dang it. And then this third game I'll talk about here, and then I'll leave it at this for now. Getting back to the Game Boy Advance, a game that I feel like I put the most time into from games from my childhood is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance for the Game Boy Advance, which I never played Final Fantasy Tactics, the original, for PlayStation 1. I had the remake, the PSP remake on my Vita, and I didn't play all of it. It plays very differently from Tactics Advance, and I do need to go back and play original Tactics. But Tactics Advance, the art style is so good. It's actually a really great. It was my first like grid-based strategy JRPG, and I feel like it's a really good tutorial for that. Like the very beginning of the game has has a little snowball fight that you do to teach you how tactics RPGs work. And yeah, that whole game, just all the side quests you can do, all the grinding that you can do, just it ate up so much of my time when I was growing up, just sitting in the recliner in my living room on my Game Boy Advance SP, just playing hours and hours of Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And I think some people would agree with me that I feel like of the Final Fantasy Tactics games, you either go Tactics or Tactics Advance. And I feel like I'm not alone in thinking that I prefer Tactics Advance. But man, that is an amazing game. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. There's some of my favorite games. I hope, if you enjoy those, let me know. Maybe tell me some of your favorite games over there in that Discord. But yeah, thanks for listening to Squared Circle Strafe. Leave us a nice review on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. You can follow me on twitter.com @UziNeon. If you want to catch more of me talking about some real nerdy stuff, you can follow the Didn't Get All of It podcast to hear me and the rest of the Fatal 4 hosts talk about the latest and greatest in professional wrestling. You can also sign up for our Patreon to get exclusive access to our Discord, where you can talk to me about your favorite games and whatnot, as well as bonus podcast content and the satisfaction of supporting independent podcasting media. Head to patreon.com/fatal4pod. That's fatal, FOUR pod. Thanks again for listening, and as always, enjoy your gaming.